And welcome back, part 36. As I was just saying in the last piece, that it's said that George and Kathy Lutz actually made something in the region of 250 to 300,000, maybe somewhere in between. Who really knows? We can never really be privy to their finances as such. However, this is what is, quite easy to find out. Well, easy to find out. It's what's widely said is that this was the figure that they were said to have made. But as I just mentioned, comparing it to 10 million for Jay Anson writing the book and over 80 million for the film company, the box office profits, we're talking peanuts by comparison. And it's also said that, quite a bit of the money they made wasn't through film or book royalties, it was through doing interviews, people paying them to come on the TV show and tell their story, etc. That in itself is quite an interesting thing, because it's said there's not that many interviews you can find these days, but that actually feature the couple themselves. But you never actually hear them talking about the parts in the book that were proved to be embellishments anyway. You never actually hear them say, oh, the door was blown off its hinges. You never hear them say, there was blood dripping down the walls or even slime dripping down the walls. They never actually say those things. So again, it's still them being accused of lies that they didn't actually tell. Yeah, so all a little bit weird in itself there, yeah. But as we say, this money that they made, it was said to have been considerably less by the time they took out legal expenses. And straight away, a chunk of that money would have gone to the Cromartie family who sued them. And there were, other lawsuits involved whereby, they were having to pay out, great chunks of money. And so it's said that, by the time they'd finished, it was more like 100,000 that they were left with. Of course, it's still a good amount of money. Of course, it is. I mean, it's still a healthy amount. I wish someone would give me 100,000 right now. I mean, that'd be wonderful. But I mean, we're still comparing this to something that overall their story did create a huge revenue from which they actually ended up with a small percentage overall. Yeah, so this is what I say, people saying, oh, they got rich from it. Well, in the end, they didn't. Not really. I mean, 100,000. I suppose even then, I mean, it would have afforded some good things in life, but it wouldn't have, made them, kind of set for life. It didn't make them millionaires. And so, we're looking at something that, clearly wasn't, all about profit. I mean, that they could have, perhaps gone, further ahead and for, really hand it up, to get more money. Maybe they could have, but we're looking at people who, really stuck to their story, all along. They stuck to what they believe happened and never really wavered on that. And so it just always comes down to what people are saying and believing and refusing to budge on when they're calling this story just a complete load of fiction that was made to make them a few easy bucks. Because if you look at it properly, if you take time to look at it, you'd see that no, no, far more to it than that. I mean, it's silly. I mean, I like to put it this way sometimes that if they'd have moved into that house and told a story about being haunted by six people, three grown-ups, well, a mother, a father, an older daughter, and three young children, saying we saw these spirits all the time, then I think anyone would question that and think, that's a bit weird, isn't it? And it seems a bit too straightforward. It seems a bit too, kind of obvious, or that the spirits of the murder victims won't leave us in peace. That would, kind of look a bit more dodgy, I suppose. And that is where we could say it was disrespectful to the DeFeo family. That's where we could say that. But really, none of it was about that. It was, anything but, a straightforward ghost story. It wasn't about, seeing, the spirits of deceased people. I mean, I suppose the nearest we got to that in any of it was a part where Kathy experienced, a feeling of a female presence and could smell the perfume. And, I suppose many people would think, well, was that Mrs. DeFeo? The previous matriarch of the house coming forward to the new matriarch. Maybe, who knows? There was said to have been a time where they saw a kind of a dark shadow move through the kitchen and, kind of just disappear kind of thing. There was, they were said to have seen this hooded figure as they were leaving. But I mean, otherwise, apart from maybe the eyes in the window, we're not talking an awful lot of apparitions. We're really not talking something that, people would expect a ghost story or a haunted house story to be. And this is why I always say, I mean, if it was something as straightforward as that, we could all be saying, oh, this looks a bit too corny. But it really, really isn't. There's nothing corny or obvious about this. There really isn't. And so, yeah, where I think I wanted it to go from here was, just to talk a little bit more about how I ended part 32, and maybe this is why it got all the hits. Maybe is just to say that, maybe there is just something about this whole concept, that keeps it alive and keeps us all fascinated all these years later, because maybe there is something in it. Maybe everyone who gets involved, whether it be through showing an interest, maybe it be through trying to slam it, maybe it be through just reading the books, and whatever, maybe you don't need to have been there, for something to have captured you in this way, but here we all are. And we would really think that, something that's nearly 50 years old, why are people falling out over it? I mean, me, myself, I wasn't born when it happened. I was born in 1978. I was born a year after the book came out. So 3 years after the Lutz story, 4 years after the DeFeo murders. So, I wasn't there, but it's something that's captured me, and it's captured younger people, and it still does. And it does cause, such, passionate arguments all the time, between people who have never met each other. And of course, yeah, like I've said a number of times, it can be largely online. But we're talking, a subject that you would think, well, it's an interest, it's a mutual interest that we all join in with, But I mean, for people to be falling out, with someone they've never met, just like that over a subject like this, I mean, we could be looking at people who you'd otherwise get on very well with. You might think, well, if it weren't for this, and if we were perhaps closer, you and I'd probably be good friends. But this subject has caused bad feelings between us. Yeah, so that is something that I do find interesting and questionable. And I'm not saying it's in an overly dramatic, far-fetched way of, we're all kind of cursed by something. I just somehow feel that there's an energy and a legend and something about this whole thing that, goes way beyond what meets the eye, and that, does have a deeper meaning. I mean, there are things about the house and the town and everything that do intrigue me. They still do, because I feel that so much of the intrigue and the curiosity could have been, at least dulled down by now. If people were in a position to go and see the house and have a walk through it and everything like that, people might just think, oh, well, you can go anytime, so why bother now? I'll go another day, and, it might even work in the reverse, that people think, oh, well, if you can go in and it's not a thrill anymore, why bother? But it's as though there it is. It's almost like the forbidden area that does create more intrigue. And I sometimes, question why. Is there something that we're not being told? Who knows? This is why we keep searching. Back soon. Thank you. Many blessings.